Way back when in 16th century Scotland there supposedly lived a man named Alexander Bean, nicknamed Sawney Bean by some people. Funny sounding nicknames aside, Bean is something of a legendary figure to the Scottish people and quite possibly one of the most horrifying monsters the world has ever known. Said to be born in East Lothian, Sawney Bean seemed destined to follow in his father's footsteps as a ditch digger, but he ultimately decided that he didn't fancy the idea of manual labor. Eventually he became entangled with a suspected witch named Agnes Douglas who shared his hatred of working for a living. The lovelorn, misanthropic couple eventually moved to a stretch of land called Benane Head, which is located near the small town of Girvan, where they turned a 660-foot deep seaside cave into their cozy new home, with the only entrance being the mouth of the cave, which was usually underwater during high tide. The budding Bean family seemed to find a perfect place to hide from the outside world. Eventually, Sawney and Agnes would sire 8 sons and 6 daughters, who, thanks to incest, would produce 32 grandchildren. A shallow gene pool, to say the least. Now, since Sawney and Agnes were allergic to any sort of employment, you may be wondering how they provided for their children and grandchildren. Well, according to legend, when the tide would go out at night, the Bean clan would come out of their cave and lay traps for unsuspecting travelers that had the bad luck of picking that particular route that night. They would kill and rob their unfortunate victims before dragging their lifeless bodies back to their cave where they would be dismembered and eaten. This nocturnal practice was done on such a regular basis that people from nearby Girvan and Ballantrae began to notice the growing missing person statistics. But no one had the imagination to deduce that the ones responsible were practically living right under their noses without detection. As time went on and more people vanished without a trace, numerous manhunts were organized in order to find out who or what was responsible, resulting in some unfortunate souls being unjustly on the receiving end of lynch mob justice. So for over 25 years, this inbred family of murdering cannibals operated with anonymity and impunity. But their luck wouldn't last forever. One night, a young man and his wife were on their way home from a local fair when they unfortunately stumbled into an ambush set by the Bean clan. The young wife would sadly be brutally murdered in the attack. But the husband wouldn't go that quietly. Producing both a pistol and a sword, the husband of the murdered woman displayed some formidable fighting skills as he single-handedly engaged the Bean clan in combat, holding them off until, rather miraculously, a larger group of people coming back from the same local fair came upon the scene. Suddenly outnumbered, the Bean family had no choice but to flee back to their cave under the cover of darkness, while the young husband's rescuers took him back to town to inform the proper authorities. With the young husband relating the terrifying encounter to the local magistrate, the Bean family's secret was out. Soon after, the story reached the Scottish king, who apparently came to Benane Head to personally lead the search party, which included 400 men and numerous bloodhounds that dutifully led the searchers to the Bean family's front door. After the tide had gone out, that is. With torches and guns drawn, the search party entered the cave and discovered the Bean family huddled together. They were reportedly surrounded by human remains, with some body parts decorating the cave walls, and others that had been pickled and put into barrels as leftovers. With piles of stolen property belonging to their victims also being discovered by the search party, the Bean family's goose was thoroughly cooked. There's officially 2 versions of the ending to the Bean family's story. One version has the 400-man search party leaving the cave and piling up some black powder at the cave entrance and blowing it to Kingdom Come, leaving the family to suffocate. Another version has the Bean clan surrendering to the search party, and after being clapped in irons, they were marched all the way to Glasgow, or Leith, depending on who's telling the story. Now, because of the heinous nature of the crimes committed and the rather dubious parentage of their brood, the Bean clan was looked upon as something less than human, therefore not eligible to be given the courtesy of a criminal trial, and immediately sentenced to death. Sawney Bean and the menfolk were emasculated and had their hands and feet amputated before being left to bleed out. Sawney Bean's words reportedly being, quote,
"It isn't over. It'll never be over."
Agnes and the womenfolk were forced to witness the men's execution before being burned alive at the stake. Thus, the evil of Sawney Bean and his clan was erased from existence. Now, how many people did Sawney Bean and his family murder, rob, and cannibalize? Well, since historians can't even agree on whether Sawney Bean and his family actually existed or not, who can say? Although according to legend, their final body count is anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 victims. If those figures are even remotely accurate, then these human monsters would probably be among some of the most prolific serial killers of the ancient world. If they were indeed real. Well, if you like this video, please show your support by hitting the like button and sharing it with your friends. If you're curious about my future content and want to hear more creepy stories, then please subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you'll be notified when new content is uploaded. Until next time, have a lovely day, stay safe out there, and most importantly,
stay creepy.